Choosing a Life by ginnyrules28, Chapter 8.
You ever think this would be where our lives would end up?
Mal looks over at Uma, who was looking at her engagement ring, her hand lifted to the ceiling so that it would be right over her face. Both girls had commandeered a guest room and were having what would be called a sleepover by anyone but them. To them, it was just tradition. There was hardly a night where Mal and Uma weren't curled up under what scraps of sheets they could find in their clubhouse, or in their beds in the underworld, after Mal found out her dad was her dad. Even once both of them were in Oregon, they tried to have their sleepovers, though they became few and far between as they got closer to Evie. They didn't want the other girl to feel left out, though this definitely called for a godling sleepover.
You mean you finally being out of your denial and finally engaged to Harry, and me pregnant with the next ruler of Oregon?
Mal asked. Oddly enough, that is exactly what I meant. It's almost as if you can read my mind.
Mal snorted in amusement before shaking her head.
No, I never thought this would be where our lives would end up. If you had told me the day I left for Oregon that I'd end up being the Queen of Oregon and pregnant with the kingdom's heir, I'd have you thrown off the docks out of fear you'd gone mad.
Jay and Harry would have done that for you too. Uma nodded. I have to say, Uncle Hades has good taste when it comes to engagement rings.
Well, he is the god of wealth after all, Mal chuckled. He has so few opportunities to use that title that, when he does, he wants to make sure it's memorable. He made your ring, by the way.
He did?
Yep. Took notes during the planning session and everything, so he wouldn't forget exactly what Harry wanted your ring to be like.
Uma chuckled softly.
I'm surprised Uncle Hades didn't make your ring too, considering you're his daughter and all.
Mal sighed softly.
I'm sure he wanted to, but Dad was on the Isle when Ben asked him for permission to marry me, so all he could do was the gem.
She shook her head.
But enough of that. What are you guys doing for your wedding?
Well, we didn't want to wait that long, Uma said. You know us, Mal. We just don't need anything fancy or over the top. Just a few friends, the Lost Revenge, and a cake should be fine.
You could ask Mrs. Potts to make the cake, Mal said. I'm sure Chip would be happy to ask her for you.
Would she be able to avoid making it all frou-frou?
Uma, it's Mrs. Potts. The most frou-frou thing she does is put a piece of tomato in the middle of a grilled cheese sandwich. The woman's like a second mother to Ben, anyway, and a third mother to me. If you told her you wanted a cake shaped like the Lost Revenge, she'd probably make it for you.
Well, now, we don't need a cake to be that fancy. Just a chocolate cake would do. But could she make our hats?
Of course she can. It's Mrs. Potts after all.
Uma and Mal both chuckled as they leaned against the pillows on the bed they were sharing.
What's it like? Uma asked after a few minutes. Being married?
Mal shrugged. Not that much different than having a crew. Basically, you have a co-captain through thick and thin. Someone who'll help you weather the storm and lead you to port, even when you think you can't do it yourself.
So, like what I've had with Harry my whole life?
Pretty much. Only difference is he probably won't feel like your grandfather will smite him if he kisses you.
You've noticed him tensing still whenever we show affection too, huh?
Uma, a blind monkey with a sledgehammer, can notice that.
Mal sighed.
The thing is,
I don't blame him. Ben gets that way sometimes, if I show him affection and Dad's in the room. And we've been married for 3 years. Not to mention, unlike Ben, Harry's from the Isle.
So? Uma asked. We're from the Isle too, Mal. And we don't tense whenever we get affection shown to us.
Mal sighed. True, Uma, but don't forget. Harry spent all his time on the Isle acting as our protector. And what's the first thing anyone who would have looked to take us down back on the Isle would have gone for?
Anyone we had feelings for, if that was the sort of thing we did.
Exactly. It's only been 7 years since we 4 got off the Isle. Sometimes it takes a while to teach an old Cerberus new tricks. Estelle looked up from his spot at the end of the bed and yipped softly. Mal chuckled. Sorry, boy. I didn't mean you. You're the smartest Cerberus there is, after all.
Yeah, boy. We could teach you any trick we wanted and you'd get it right away.
Omer nodded. Estelle grinned and put his head back down, contentedly chewing on a chicken rawhide. Mal had been sure to lay a towel out before giving it to him, since the rawhide tended to stain whatever it was on.
Omer shook her head. How's it feel? Being pregnant, I mean.
Weird, Mal told her. Like a good weird. I'm preparing to bring someone into the world who's part Ben and part me. And a part of me is terrified I'm going to mess up this child from all the time I spent around the dragon.
And the other part of you?
Mal smiled slightly. The other part of me is excited to see how much more goodness there will be in the world from bringing Ben's child into it. Because I know we're not our parents. I would never pressure the pup to be Ben if they were a boy. But how could Ben's child be anything but good?
You're forgetting something, Mally, Omer said. You've done so much good for Auradon. You stopped Freddy.
We did that together, Mal told her. You, me, and Macaria. I would never have gotten up on the roof had you not lifted me up.
Shut up and listen to what I'm telling you, Omer said. What I'm trying to say is that there's no way you're going to mess the kid up. And you want to know why I'm sure about this?
Why?
Because you're worried about it, Omer told her. If you weren't worried about turning it into the dragon, then I'd be worried that you might mess up this kid, Mally. But you won't.
You sure?
Mal, how many times did you fight to make sure the younger VKs of the crew kept their innocence as long as they could on the Isle? And yes, I know we were both co-captains and we both did that, but I'm talking about you. Not to mention, Ben wouldn't have married or wanted to have kids with you if he thought you wouldn't be a good mum.
Ben didn't marry me for kids, though.
Yeah, I know. Omer nodded. Still, he was probably thinking about it. I mean, he's the High King of Auradon. How could he not have thought of the possibility of having an heir at some point?
Mal smiled slightly. Have I told you the names we've picked out?
No, I don't think you did, Omer said. So, come on, hit me.
So, if the pup's a girl, we're going to name her Stephanie Isabel Haley Lebete. And if the pup's a boy, we're going to name him Maurice Benjamin Adam Lebete.
Adam.
Mal sighed. Emma, you do know my father-in-law has a name other than Beast, right?
Oh, I know, Omer nodded. I'm just trying to figure out why you want to name your child after the man who imprisoned us on an island for 16 years and never bothered to look into the food situation we had.
It seemed cruel to leave him out when all the other grandparents were being included, Mal said, and we may be VKs, but we're not cruel.
Omer shook her head. At least you're not making it the first middle name. Small mercies, I guess.
Ben wanted to see if we could include his middle name. Mal chuckled. I put my foot down on either of our middle names being included in a son or daughter's name.
What was Benny's middle name again?
Florian.
Omer snorted in amusement. I mean, compared to your middle name, cuz, it's not that bad.
Yeah, I know. Mal shook her head. Bertha's a really bad middle name. You know, Mum offered to have it changed when I changed my first name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I turned down the offer though. I thought it was kinda cool how my names were part Isle and part Auradon. Like how I was and still am.
What would you have changed it to, if you had taken Aunt Step off on our offer?
Maybe Fleur? I know it sounds prissy, but it's French for flower. Maleficent taught me some French in case I needed to use it for a spell, or recognise if someone was trying to curse me. Specifically, your dad.
Omer rolled her eyes. Dad would never curse you. You were one of his favourite students at Dragon Hall.
Because he actually liked me, or because he thought Maleficent was my mother?
Probably both, now that I think about it.
Mal sighed and shook her head.
So, you excited?
About my wedding?
No, about the birth of my child. Yes, I'm talking about your wedding.
Uma snorted slightly before smiling. In a weird way, I am. I mean, like you've said, I've practically been married to Harry since I've known him, but now it's more official, you know?
I get it, Mal said, giving her cousin a small smile. Trust me, that feeling of knowing that you made it to the finish line, that there's not as much to worry about, because no matter what happens, you'll be able to make it there as a team.
You've really got to stop reading my mind, cuz.
Can't help it. It's a gift.
Uma snorted again before shaking her head slightly and looking over at Mal.
I know I was your maid of honor, and I know there's technically another term for when the married person does it, but...
Yes, Uma, Mal smiled. I'll be your matron of honor. Did you really think I'd say no?
Well, I mean, you're queen. You might be busy.
The best part about being queen? You can set your own schedule. My cousin's getting married. Something Jay and I thought would never happen because we didn't think you and Harry would ever get out of your denial.
We weren't in denial.
You didn't speak for Harry for 2 weeks after you found him and me during our flirtationship.
Uma sighed. Yeah. What was that about? Did you have feelings for him?
Gods, no. Mal shook her head. Harry was and still is my brother in all but blood, Uma. But I wanted to know what a flirtationship was like. Almost all the girls our age had had one, after all. But I knew Maleficent would say that love is weakness and teach me a lesson if she found out I had one.
So you went for Harry?
I went for one of the 2 boys I knew wouldn't pressure me into doing anything I wasn't comfortable with. The only things Harry and I did were a bit of cuddling in the clubhouse, and he'd kiss me on the forehead. Stuff he'd do with Harriet. Besides, we broke it off after you found us. It just felt too weird. You don't need to worry, Uma. He's had feelings for you since he knew what feelings were. Uma couldn't help but smile as she heard that. Yeah, it went against everything they stood for as VKs. But there was something nice about knowing that even when Harry was with another girl, he still had feelings for her. Mal chuckled. You know, Jay owes me $20 right now.
Why?
I bet him that you would be in denial about having been in denial. Oh, speaking of Jay, you know that you'll have your wedding either during a bye week or during his off-season? He'd never forgive himself if he missed Harry's wedding. How could he do his best man duties?
Uma chuckled slightly. Harry's been tasked with coordinating it with Jay to make sure we've got the right date. Though I don't know if Jay will be Harry's best man.
Why wouldn't he be?
Because he wants Harriet to do it instead, Uma said. Though now he's worried about somehow offending CJ of Harriet's best matron, even though Harriet would just be returning the favour after Harry walked her down the aisle of her wedding to Sammy.
Mal chuckled. Did you ever think you'd ever see the day that Harry would be worried about offending CJ?
Hey, I mean, he did almost kill Freddy for her, Uma pointed out.
True. Mal nodded, then sighed. Does it make me a mad person that a part of me wishes Harry had broken out of the hold he was in and managed to skewer Freddy with his sword?
I know what you mean, cuz, Uma said. And I want to say no. But that would be ignoring the 2 good things Freddy managed to create.
Harry and Paige, Mal said.
Got it in one, Uma nodded. Gods, it's hard to believe those girls are related in any way to Freddy. If it weren't for Paige's grey eyes, I would have thought Audrey produced those 2 by budding.
Honestly, I keep wondering how Leah would have reacted to finding out Audrey not only had kids out of wedlock, but also had them with a VK, Mal said, shaking her head. Still, I know Aurora and Philip wouldn't trade those girls for anything.
Are you still helping Harry with her magic?
Yeah, or at least I was before I got pregnant. Thankfully, she's got a handle on it now, and she's even started teaching a bit to Paige.
Paige has magic too?
Not as much as Harry does, Mal said. Claudine told me that she thinks it had something to do with Audrey wielding Maleficent's sceptre when she got pregnant with Harry, and still had some remaining in her system when she got pregnant with Paige, with how close it was from Harry being born.
How powerful are we talking in terms of magic?
Nothing too crazy. No shapeshifting or anything, but Harry and Paige will manage fireballs and probably a few of Maleficent's weaker spells in her spellbook. Her speed reading spell, for instance.
Maleficent has a speed reading spell?
It's better not to ask. I still don't understand half the things that the dragon had in that spellbook, and it's technically my birthright.
Uma shook her head. And on that note, we're changing the subject.
Agreed, Mal nodded. Talking about Maleficent will only put a damper on the night.
And that's the truth.
Uma chuckled before sighing.
Gods. You know, there's a part of me that still can't believe we're in Oridon. You remember when Smee tossed a bucket of rotten meat at the barrier to see if TikTok and his kin could eat through it?
Yeah, Mal nodded with a smile. Though for someone not all that used to magic, it wasn't a bad idea. What was a bad idea was the Gastons trying to break down the barrier using a battering ram.
Didn't one of Gil's brothers break his leg with that stunt?
Yep. Though he was lucky he didn't drown. The battering ram got wet and pinned him underwater because it slipped from his grasp.
Wait, did they try to break the barrier wall in the cove?
Yep.
Idiots. The lot of them.
Preaching to the choir. And how did you miss it? You're always on the ship.
Mama had me work 6 days a week from sunup to sundown at the chip shop, Mal.
Oh, Mal said before deciding to change the subject. But hey, they didn't do what the evil queen did and just throw potions at the barrier. All she got out of that were her eyebrows and eyelashes burnt off.
I know we're friends with Evie now, but is it wrong I still want to laugh at that?
Do you still laugh at Maleficent being a lizard despite being friends with me?
Oh, of course.
Then I think you're good.
Uma chuckled. I think the worst escape attempt was Cruella's. I mean, she got the bright idea to just drive her car into the barrier. It took Jasper and Horace ages to fix it. DeVille's lucky he was in Oridon when it happened.
Didn't you tell me that once that Harry took her car for a joyride?
Mal asked. Yeah, Uma nodded. He wanted to break it down and sell it for parts, but people noticed, like, right away. I mean, it's a bright red car. How could they not notice?
How'd Harry escape Cruella going after him?
He didn't. Horace and Jasper found him one night making his way back from Uncle Hades' restaurant and dragged him to the stocks.
No!
Yeah, left him there overnight too.
Mal shook her head. Remind me to smack your fiancé for not telling me about this. Thank God we had our alliance with the hyenas, or else who knows what would have happened.
Yeah, Uma nodded. Though, Harry got a few good looks in. Jasper's still got a nice scar on the side of his face from Harry's hook, and Harriet gave Horace a black eye and a broken nose for messing with her brother. Not to mention what Uncle Hades did when he found out.
Ooh, do tell.
He cut Cruella off from delivery. Said that if she can have her henchmen do her dirty work, she can have them pick up her food. Thankfully, Harry wasn't hurt too bad after the altercation, so it's not like Uncle Hades needed to flame up, but still, you don't mess with his kids.
Ain't that the truth? Mal nodded. You know, once you're married, Dad'll be Uncle Hades to Harry.
Oh, man, I didn't even think about that, Uma chuckled. I can't wait until Harry realises that. I hope I'm there to see his face when he does.
Take a picture so I can see too.
Mal nodded. Aye, aye, your highness.
Call me that again and I'll throw this pillow at you, Mrs. Hook.
Hey, that's Captain Hook to you.
Both cousins looked at each other before bursting out laughing. They continued to talk through the night before their eyes grew heavy, and before long they both fell asleep, as content as could be. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. I like that one. That is very nice. I think those girls needed a girls' night in. And just between the cousins who are basically sisters. Love that. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified for whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, girls and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.